You're listening to the Freight Hub Podcast with Luis Lopez.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow?
Freaking idiot.
Oh, no more Yankee, my wanky.
Wrong.
That is
wrong.
Would you stop slapping that thing?
It's my flap. I'll do whatever the hell I want.
Good morning and happy Monday. Welcome again to another Freight Hub podcast. I'm here with a very special guest. I've been on vacation for a week, and I get back to a very interesting person that we get to have a podcast with today, Christoph Niemann. Anybody that doesn't know me and is new to the podcast, my name is Luis Lopez, and I am the founder of Freight Hub, also Truck Hub, the software TMS that connects shippers, dispatchers, and drivers to one platform. Our special guest today is Christoph Niemann, and Christoph is the Southeast Seafreight area operations manager for Kuehne and Nagel. We've been working with Kuehne and Nagel for over 10 years. It's a company that's grown in revenue year and over year. In 2018, TransTopics has them listed as the number one freight forwarder in volume at 4.7 million TEUs. When it comes down to Kuehne and Nagel, they're like a complete freight forwarder. They do end-to-end. And I'm going to introduce now Christoph Niemann and get a little intro on him. And then we're going to do a discussion on the freight forwarding industry, on what exactly is the prediction for freight in the upcoming months, and where he sees the market going, and compare that to where I see the market going on the domestic side. So I'm going to introduce now a good friend of mine, somebody that's really been in the industry a long time and has grown at Kuehne and Nagel. I've seen it personally. So introduce Christoph Niemann.
Yes, thanks, Luis. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Christoph Niemann. I'm working with Kuehne and Nagel now my 14th year. I've been working, as you know, here in Miami for 5 years where we met. I am married. I have one son, moved recently back to Atlanta, and I'm in charge for the seafood operations in the Southeast and overseeing the entire operations for the 10 offices that we have here.
Awesome. So just a little bit about Kuehne and Nagel. And I've seen Kuehne and Nagel grow organically over the past 5 years. As of right now, most freight websites, Journal of Commerce, FreightWaves, see Kuehne and Nagel as the number one volume freight forwarder when it comes down to TEU. So if you can explain to everybody what a TEU is, what is Kuehne and Nagel's mission statement, and where do you see the market going in the next quarter? Because on the domestic side, and we work with you guys closely domestically, there's three modes of domestic transport that I would like to discuss with you. You got local last mile, you have full truckload nationwide, and then you have import and export container drayage. And what I'd like to discuss is those three modes of transport and what exactly you envision being the future of quarter 3 and quarter 4 of the ocean freight import and export market, and if you see the possibility of a freight recession occurring in the next quarter or in the next year. Okay. So if you could just give me again a little bit of a background on what's Kuehne and Nagel's mission statement currently, where you guys are, and if you can define TEU for me.
Okay, a lot of questions at once. TEU, 20 equivalent units, meaning we measure containers by a 20-foot unit. So we have moved, basically you could go by and say we moved 4.7 million containers, which is not true because you also measure the 40-foot unit, is 2 TEUs. So that's for the TEUs. Our mission statement is pretty much to be an extension of our customers, meaning we want to be part of the business. We want not to be seen as a simple service provider, but we want to provide customer and operational excellence towards the customers and include innovation and improve their business habits on a daily basis. So we see ourselves as an extension to our customers, not necessarily as a supplier.
So there's an interesting article that I saw at the end of last year and saw it on FreightWaves the beginning of this year, where it says that Kuehne and Nagel, world's largest ocean freight forwarder, is adding a money-back guarantee to offset carbon and to basically insure freight now on a guarantee. Can you explain a little bit about what you guys are doing with that?
The product is called Kuehne and Nagel Pledge. So that it's an online quoting tool that you can go in and you get a guaranteed delivery window for a shipment, let's say from Asia, from Shanghai to Miami. So you would get a guaranteed transit time of XYZ days at a rate that is covering as well $100,000 in insurance, cargo claim insurance. And if we don't make the stipulated time within what we had agreed to, then we would reimburse the customer the full amount.
Wow, that's really innovative. There's many factors. Anybody in the freight forwarding business or even in the domestic business, there's a lot of factors when you talk about ocean freight. You got to deal with the domestic side on at origin. You have to deal with the steamship lines. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with customs. You have to deal with the domestic side on the export when it comes in, and then you have to deal with the final mile. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I think that you guys, as a company, and as an outsider looking in, you guys are a lot about culture. I think you build culture within your people, and that is a very, very big kind of tool that could really change the way people do business with the freight forwarding industry. Because when you talk about ocean freight now more than ever, people are looking for on-time logistics. It's no longer, well, ocean freight, we don't care about how long it takes. No, these shippers care more than ever about these transit times, and they care more than ever about how quickly the last mile component's happening. So I think that's a very innovative way to kind of change the way the market's trending, because I don't think anybody else is doing that. One thing I want to talk about today is that the trends that we're looking at on the domestic side, because domestic transportation kind of goes hand in hand with freight forwarding. Right. Just for anybody that doesn't know, freight forwarders tend to be asset light, meaning they're just outsourcing all the domestic components as well as the ocean freight. They don't actually own any services. They're not providing services in-house. So you guys rely on trucking companies like ourselves. You guys rely on steamship lines like MSC, Maersk, in order to connect your customer with their product end to end, right? So what I've been looking at is that we have now seen about 15-20% increase in our internal costs, and that includes drivers are getting paid more, cost of insurance have gone up, cost of doing business has just in the past 2 years gone up about 15 to 18% on average, and you can even argue it's up to 20%. And I've noticed that in 2018, October, November, December, we had record months, right? And the record months, and I'm gonna segue this to you now. The record months came from the tariff war, right? And everybody was concerned. All the importers and shippers were concerned. Well, if the tariff war starts January 1st, we want to import as much as possible, right? So I want to discuss for a minute. Did you guys see volumes increase October, November, December? And have you seen those increases stay for the first and second quarter of 2019, or have you seen a drop? And then a segue back to me is going to be, well, I'm noticing now second quarter of this year, I've seen volumes decrease, and I haven't increased my cost to my customers because our volumes have increased, right? Even though our costs have increased, I've been able to sustain kind of the same rate per mile, same rate for local drayage, same rate for last mile, because our volumes have increased, right? So I can put that money into my net, my bottom line and scale, because just like you guys, we're all about volume. We're not charging a large margin per shipment. We're looking at volume. We need volume in order to grow. So what's an interesting dynamic about the industry today, where I feel like we're heading into a freight recession, is that unemployment is at an all-time low. Minimum wage, I don't care what anybody says, minimum wage is $15. Yet the cost of the services haven't gone up, but my cost to provide that service are going up, where if the volume decreases, right, it's like the perfect storm for what I would consider a freight recession, and is an identical model to the 2006, 2007, where freight recession happened, and then we got into a global recession, which kind of, in my opinion, you see a freight recession before you see a global recession. So I'm going to segue now to you. You tell me, do you agree we saw volumes increase in October, November, December, and have those volumes stayed consistent?
I mean, we in Kuehne and Nagel, we have seen volume increases pretty much starting in August, not related to the tariff wars, but because of the TPEB season. Then you had the tariff wars, which were pretty hefty on us in terms of volumes, which is good. You know, we had a lot of business, a lot of things moving, a lot of transloads happening, but a lot of work. You know, and it's been dragging through, I would say, April. Yeah, it's been going on, and it's not really slowing down to a degree. We see customers slowing down. We see shippers slowing down in Asia as well, but the volume is still pretty hefty on our end. Do I see a recession coming? I'm not sure. I think it just balances out as it was in the past. We have seen a lot of customers with heavy inventories today sitting there at the warehouses, overflowing warehouses. You see a lot of trucks in your business as well sitting outside of a warehouse being accumulating detention and per diem just because the warehouses cannot receive any more boxes. So I think it's gonna go back to normal, and we need to see what's gonna happen in the new season from Asia.
Okay, so what you're saying is that things are just balancing out, where we went from peak season due to the tariff wars, but really in reality the revenues going down is just a balance of what was a tariff war that never occurred. Is that your statement pretty much?
Right. I think it's more heavy on the exports today from the US when you look at the commodities that you're moving. When you talk about anything related to agriculture, it's slowing down. Scraps is slowing down. We don't know where to go with our trash, right? It's not our business, but these are the things that are more hurting, I think, on the export side in the US.
Gotcha. Yeah, and on the domestic side for us, what we've seen is that like the week of April 1st, which is normally considered like Holy Week, we've seen a drastic change in the market where it went from a spot market on the domestic side, a spot rate market, to more now like you got to look at contracts and you got to have relationships, because there is spot market rates have gone down dramatically. That's the full truckload model, and that's not the container drayage model, where the difference between I see full truckload and domestic drayage imports coming into the United States is that the ports are so outdated. There's such a heavy congestion in the port that even though volumes might be decreasing, there's such an inefficiencies in these ports that it leads to waiting the same amount of time, even though the volume doesn't really match the idle time inside the port. So like in Port of Miami, and you've been in the Miami industry for, like you said, 5 years, we talk about this all the time, that, you can't do more. A local drayage driver cannot do more than 2 movements a day, because the idle times inside the port are 3 to 4 hours on average, day in and day out. And they close, they're open from 8:30, closing at 4, and then they're closed from 12 to 1 for lunch. So that gives you like a 6.5, 7 hour window to actually provide trucking service to the customer. And like in reality, it's a conversation that we've had many times where, if you're looking for same day delivery for a local container drayage, you move Miami, there's no way we can provide you that service by 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, because the port opens at 8. And if your average idle time is 2 to 3 hours, or let's say 4 on average, right? The earliest you can get to a customer is between 11 and 12 o'clock midday.
Right.
So, it's one of those things that I wanted to discuss with you also is, what is your opinion of that, and how could you see that change? Because I'm using Miami because that's what you and I know, but it's across the country. There's big inefficiencies in these ports. There was massive amounts of volume increases, which makes sense why the ports were so delayed. But why is it that day in and day out, busy port, high volume port, it's still pretty much the same? There's massive waiting times and idle times for these drivers. What do you think the reason is?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I don't think you can just purely blame it on the ports as well, right? It's the expectations that the customers are having. They expect you to deliver a container at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, which is not possible. Right. And the biggest issue that I feel is in the market that there's very little transparency. So how do you set a expectation straight for a customer without knowing what they actually look at? They call Port of Miami and they get an answer that it takes 20 minutes to outgate a container, which is obviously not happening. So there needs to be a change of transparency in the market when it comes to our ports. How long is it really the turnaround time? When it comes to truckers, how long have you been waiting at the port? How long does it take you in traffic? How long can a driver drive? These things are becoming more important when you talk about transparency, and then you can build off that. But right now, nobody knows really what's going on. Everybody expect everybody to jump, and if you cannot do it at 8 o'clock in the morning, somebody will do it at 8 o'clock in the morning because they want that business to be managed.
Right.
So
and that's a great segue, which is transparency. And with us, we're trying to do that with technology. So we a couple years ago created a TMS platform, not really because we were interested in creating a TMS platform, just because there was nothing in the industry that would allow us to provide our customers transparency. And like, for example, as of now, you guys have been one of our pilot customers that have been using Truck Hub. And what we're trying to do on the last mile container drayage and full truckload domestically is give customers a tool that would be an Uber-like experience that would allow them to be able to log in or get automatic emails and be able to see that truck in real time from point A to point B. And I think that that's something that in reality you've helped me push the needle on, because you and I have always discussed how when it comes down to last mile, when it comes down to domestic visibility, there's very few trucking companies that are providing that access and providing that visibility. And when it comes down to a trucking company, the reality is everybody does the same service. I'm not competing with a trucking company point A to point B on service. We're all making the same lines. We're all procuring the same drivers. We're all paying the drivers pretty much the same. How do you separate yourself from the rest of the industry when in reality, there's no way to do that with service, right? And for us, that's with tech. And what we're trying to do is provide a platform that gives customers a user experience from start to finish. And that user experience is with a map and with a icon of a driver and with KPIs that when the driver accepted the order, when the driver delivered, when the driver was in transit, right? Because at the end of the day, more now than ever, if you want to have a relationship with a company like Kuehne and Nagel, right, which is one of the largest freight forwarders in the world, and the data says you guys are the largest freight forwarder in the world, right? You guys are expecting more than ever for your vendors to be accountable for the services that they're providing. And when it comes down to a rate, right, and a relationship, the rate is one thing, but if you can set yourself apart through technology or through visibility and through transparency, then the rate is not as important as it would be if you were just providing the service from point A to point B.
Right. So it comes down to everybody, okay? I mean, you try to build transparency between, let's say, a Kuehne and Nagel, a Truck Hub, and the customer, right? So it's all about the data. In the end of the day, you want to look at and you want to analyze the business that you're carrying. So you want to see how much time it takes, because when you look at rates, I mean, everybody has pretty much the same rates in the market today, no matter if it's trucking or if it's ocean freight or if it's whatever. Everybody manages the same amount of rates, or the same rates as a whole. So where do you make a difference? You make a difference in actually building data, and you reduce time. So that's what you do with Truck Hub as a tech company now. So it reduces a great amount of time of mine to know where I'm at, what kind of transparency I have. I don't have to call you. I don't have to do spreadsheets. I don't have to do all these crazy things in the background, argue with the customer at the end of the day on why he's been waiting there for 2 hours. These things are very difficult to argue nowadays, because there's just no transparency. It doesn't tell me, it doesn't give me a real live data telling me, yes, that driver has been waiting 4 hours at a port. And that's the problem. So it's a waiting time with the customers. It's detention. It's per diem. When was the shipment taken over again by the supplier? When was it given back to the trucker? When was it given back to a freight forwarder? I don't know.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, when you talk about container drayage, there's demurrage and per diem, and typically most freight forwarders, one of their largest costs on a yearly basis that they absorb is per diem and demurrage charges, because it's very easy to have your customer just blame you, and in theory it's not you, it's either your trucker or the steamship line that made a mistake, and now you're in the middle between your customer and the trucker and the steamship line in order to not lose that relationship. Now you have to make a decision. Are you going to cover per diem or demurrage? And for the most part, you have to educate your customer on why they have to pay these charges.
Right, but it's on all ends, because the industry I think we are in is like nobody trusts the other.
Right.
A freight forwarder doesn't trust the trucker doesn't trust the freight forwarder, and then we don't trust the customers, and the customers don't trust us, and it's going back and forth. And you talk about per diem and demurrage, and why is this happening? Even when you talk about a pre-poll, do you have a pre-poll because you want to not pay demurrages on behalf of the customer because you try to do good? These are the things that are very difficult to measure.
Right. And for those that don't know, a pre-pull is when you pull a container the day before, because normally a customer wants an early delivery. Right. Or a lot of times you do a pre-pull because the distance between the port of pickup and the address of delivery could reach that ELD mandate.
Right.
So that's another thing that's a whole different conversation, right, is the ELD mandates. That's completely changed the way truckers work.
I mean, the point is anything that is additional, demurrage and detention for sure is one of the highest costs that you can have as a freight forwarder and as in the end of the day, the customer. So how do you get this under control? And we work in Kuehne and Nagel with probably 20, 25 people just working on these things. Yeah, and local drayages, and additional costs. So we manage it on a daily basis, which is in spreadsheets, and it's in calling truckers, and it's a lot of communication. That's what I'm saying. It's like
right.
There's zero transparency unless you're gonna call somebody and you figure it out. So it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time wasted because I don't make money. I don't make money by invoicing somebody the outlays of the mergers.
Absolutely, and you have all these fixed costs on human beings that have to.
I have 2, 3, 4 people just managing a per diem and demurrage desk.
Right. And if you don't do that, then you lose control, and your costs can be outrageous because per diem and demurrage is very, very expensive.
Right.
So speaking of that, when it comes down to, if we could go back up for a second on the freight recession and where I kind of see the market, look, in reality, if you're an employee today, you have the advantage. It's very hard to find talent, right? I mean, you would say for your company, which is all about culture and all about building relationships with your employees, it's hard to find qualified people that are responsible, educated, can buy into your culture. And we fight that as a small business. So for us, it's even harder because, you guys are a huge company. You have great benefits. You have a million things that you can offer. Small business guys like us, or mid-sized business like myself, it's all for me about the culture. And it's all about that experience, giving these young guys the ability to come in here and make an impact. So in regards to employees and how you guys procure, what is it that you're looking for? So if there's somebody watching this on LinkedIn or watching this on Indeed or on all the platforms that we're going to put this on, if I would want to work for your company, what are the biggest things that you guys look for as a company when you're looking to hire new talent?
I mean, when I personally hire somebody, the first 2-3 seconds are the most important things. It's just how somebody comes into the room, like how somebody is shaking your hands, how somebody is introducing themselves. You can feel a certain, I don't want to say electricity, but you can feel like, okay, that person is straightforward and he wants to really work. I'm not necessarily looking at the background of the person. I mean, yes, what have you been doing, and why would you want to work for Kuehne and Nagel? Do you know what we do in Kuehne and Nagel, and how did you find us in Kuehne and Nagel? And what are your goals? What are your short-term goals? 2 years, 5 years, and what are your long-term goals in 10 years? Where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself moving up the ladder? Do you see yourself at the desk level for the rest of your life? What do you want to do in your life? So you get a certain vibe, I would say, about a person. You say, okay, that could be somebody. Then we would go to the next step and interview it again with my counterparts as well, and we review that. And if we then get all together and we feel we both like that person, we would go hire him. Yeah? And it does not really matter if you're coming out of college or not of college, whatever. You see a motivated person nowadays,
So would you say you look at like if they went to college or what college they went to, or you're more about?
I mean, we look at yes, you went to a college, yes, cool, that's good.
Right.
If you're coming to me and say like, oh, okay, I want to work in freight forwarding because XYZ, and you convince me that you really want to do it, you can come from high school if you want to.
Right. Now, would you say you gravitate towards somebody that has a college experience, or would you rather gravitate towards somebody that has freight experience? Like somebody that's been in the industry 4 or 5 years working at a counterpart of yours or a competitor of yours, do you take them more seriously?
Look, it really depends, because our business is still a people's business. Okay, you have to have a certain character to manage the daily stress, and you need to be good with people. You know, we have in the office here in Miami, we have about 100 people, and we're dealing daily basis with different customers, with truckers, with carriers, with. You need to get along with people. You need to be outspoken. So you can tell a person is that person for you, rather than you don't need to go to college for that.
Gotcha.
You
No,
know,
that's a great.
It's of course it's a benefit. You have a certain background in business and etc. This is great. I mean, I did that. Okay, cool. But if you have that energy, and you can feel that energy, and you see that the person is willing to learn and is willing to learn about your business and wants to be part of the company and sees a vision in it, and that's why we ask him what your short, mid, and long term goals. So you get an idea of the person. And if that person is coming out of high school, we can offer still programs that we support if they want to go to college.
That's awesome, because there's for sure people that are probably interested in Kuehne and Nagel and they just don't know how to get in there. Maybe they don't feel like they're prepared, and I think that answers a lot of questions.
I think if you want to work for Kuehne and Nagel, you need to be very good with people. It's all about the customer experience, not like it used to be like maybe 10, 15 years ago, where you were beating everybody by rates. But nowadays it became more and more important that you actually a fantastic customer rep, and you put all your effort in the customer experience.
Amazing. Well, we're gonna end today with a quick note. Just want to get a little profile on you, Christoph.
Right.
I know you said you're married, you have a kid.
Right.
Just if you could just give me a quick rundown of what your hobbies are. You're living in Atlanta now. Just a quick rundown on what your hobbies are, and then we'll end it today. I want to say thank you again. I know you're very busy. I know you got a lot of things going on. For you to take 25 minutes to sit with us, so I really appreciate it. So if you just give me a rundown on you, and then we'll be done.
All right. Like I said, I'm married. I have one son who's 3.5 years old. I just moved to Atlanta, in Atlanta, Decatur. For the past 7 months, I'm a passionate soccer player. I have been. Maybe you don't see it anymore because I gained a lot of weight. But I love to play golf. Love to hang out with my family, my friends, and I love coming to Miami, go to the beach. Yeah,
absolutely. Miami's a great spot. So thanks again for coming out here. I know Monday morning coming out here is tough. Guys, appreciate your time today. And stay tuned for the next Freight Hub podcast. Thanks.
Very cool. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Freight Hub podcast with Luis Lopez. If you liked our show, please leave a comment or review. We hope you'll tune in next time.